Well, hi everyone. My name is David Lilly, and I'm the pastor of Woodbury United Methodist Church. And I'm here with my good friend.
Jason McAnally, my name. That is my name. I'm the pastor of Home Church in Nashville. It's so good to be with you
It's
again.
yeah, it's really really good to see you, Jason, and to not see anyone else, but to be with everyone else as we continue. And last week we started what we're going to be doing for these next few weeks during the season of Lent leading up to Easter, where we're looking each week at one of the verses in the Gospel of John where Jesus says, I am something, the I am statements in John. And last week was I am the bread of the work, the bread of life, excuse me. And this week, do you want to read our verse for us so we see where we are this week? Or do you want me to go ahead and read
Sure.
that one? Okay.
I'd be happy to. Okay, I'm on the wrong page. The verse this week is from John chapter 8. It's verse 12, and it says this. When Jesus spoke again to the people, he said, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Yeah, so um, that is a statement. We see the theme of light, the image of light all throughout the Bible, from the very first chapter of Genesis, where it's the first thing that God creates. It says, let there be light, and there was light. And then you actually see it in Revelation as well. And just it's everywhere. So we're going to talk a few minutes about some of the things that we saw in this passage, and maybe some connections throughout the Bible. But Dave, was there anything?
Well, even just mentioning that, like that one in Genesis there, like there's this really cool thing when you read the creation account, and it's the 7 days of creation, and light is created several days before the sun or the moon or
Mm,
stars. Like
yeah,
um, light comes before there's any created thing giving light. And so, like right there in creation, it's like, where's the light coming from? It's coming from God. Like there's no answer
yeah,
except God. There's nothing else it could be coming from. And so that, yeah, when he's like, I am the light of the world, God is the light of the world from the very beginning. And that's
yeah,
just this really, really rich connection with that part of the scripture in particular.
yeah. And that's the same image in Revelation as well. At the end, there's um it's talking about God again is the light, at the end of all things, in the kingdom of heaven, and the new creation.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, he's in these I am statements. Jesus is making very bold claims, and the
Yeah.
in the Exodus, when God meets with Moses, reveals himself to Moses, he says, I am. And so there's that connection as well in all of these statements, saying I am.
Yeah.
And Jesus is in human form, teaching in various capacities in different places, and he's saying I am. And so even those words by themselves are pretty controversial, pretty bold. But then to say I am the light of the world, that's just sealing the deal. He's
Yeah.
going even farther.
Yeah, for real. It's pretty wild. And then I like in I know you're at home church, you were looking at this passage in your worship service on this
Mhm.
past Sunday, and in there you were kind of drawing on the story that comes right after this, where it's
Yeah,
Jesus heals a man who's been blind, and um, in that context of somebody who was unable to see and then can see, that Jesus says,
yeah,
I am the light of the world. And like
yeah,
literally the one providing sight to somebody in that moment is saying, I'm the light.
yeah. And there's that's a powerful image. Like, if you're gonna say you're the light of the world, a miracle like this is a good way to follow it. Right? um but then you also have, in the same surrounding passages, the Pharisees, who were these experts in the law, who were the people you went to hear about God and learn revelation about God. they seem to be so spiritually blind. And they, even after this miracle where this man who was born blind, he had never seen anything, can now see, they're still blind. They still
Mm.
look at that situation and are trying to figure out what's wrong with this guy. Not inspired, not moved, not repenting. Like, this, he's clearly not God. And this guy is saying, well, I don't know who he is, but I couldn't see and now I can see. And
Uh-huh.
I love that testimony. So many times, even now, people will ask me questions about God and faith, and uh, I mean, really hard questions. And there are times where I can give a semi-educated response, and there's sometimes it's like, I used to be this way and now I'm this way.
Uh-huh.
I don't know about how creation then happened, like how the age of all of these scientific questions. But I know that God changed my life. I met Jesus,
Yeah.
and there's something different because of it. And so I guess I can connect with the man born blind in that way.
Yeah, and I like there it's like you have that and it's such a definitive, a clear story, and then you hear all these other people talking about this story of this person who is blind, and their stories get so confused. Like it starts where they're
Yeah.
arguing over like, oh, is he blind because he sinned or because his parents sinned, or like what's the cause of his blindness? And then like afterwards, after he gets healed, people are like, oh no, this isn't that same guy who was blind. Like he just looks kind of like him. Like it's a identical twin switch, like in some the magician movie with Christian Bale. It's like they're playing some kind of a trick, and it's like I love the depth of conversation that Scripture gets to here because it's so realistic. Like, no, it can't be that guy; it's someone else. But it's like they're all just confused about who they are, and so of course they're confused about who this man is. Like they don't know where they've come from. They don't know where they're going. They don't know who this person is. They don't know how sight could have come to him because they don't know what light is. Like they're just confused about everything in this passage. And Jesus is like the one who's so clear. And that's like what the blind man can hold on, or the person, he's not blind anymore. Like the man who had been blind, that's what he can cling to. He's like, well, I don't know, but this guy came and now I can see. And like, that's the thing I'm sure of.
That's really powerful. They even bring in his parents and I mean and bring him in again, and there's a lot there. There's also a connection here. They've just are celebrating the Feast of Tabernacles, which takes them back to Exodus and this time when they're living in tents and where they have God as a guide, and says cloud by day and pillar of fire by night.
And I'll just add to there, because it's one of those words, like tabernacle feels like this big fancy religious word. Like it basically means tent. Like it's like we could call it like, oh, the Feast of Tent or the Feast of Camping. Like it's like just to keep it like, oh yeah, it just means like the thing when you're traveling and sleeping in tents and like using tents. That's the feast here.
Feast of Camping. So hot dogs and s'mores and but and it's a time when God has just freed them, and then really become their God, their master, and here and they're formed a new covenant and all. But I loved what the part you said when we were discussing about walking, like
because you highlighted that connection to the Exodus, which is something I hadn't thought of before. But it's in the Exodus, God led the people with this pillar of cloud during the day and a pillar of fire at night. So it was a light at night that they could follow in the darkness. and that Jesus specifically says, whoever follows me will never walk in darkness. Like that is that image. They're following the light. Even in the midst of darkness, they don't have to walk in darkness because the light is in front of them.
Wow.
And it's like, and I love that Jesus, then he's going on and he says, like, I know where I've come from and I know where I'm going. It's like he knows the journey, he knows the trail and the map, and he's giving light to us to follow on that same trail and that same journey. And it's like he's the one who actually knows where he's going here, and we're all like fumbling our way through. We're like, well, I know this, I don't really know about that, like we were saying before, but it's like, oh, he actually knows this thing. And so we have this one thing where we can have clarity, we can have certainty, and we can know what the next step is, like firmly, because the light is shining on it. And
that's so good. I mean, in a time when the internet provides us so many stories and so many some true realities, some false realities, and some we just have no idea.
Right.
And just this one true thing, this is the light. I can Google things and may come up with things that are true and may come up with things that aren't true, but I know Jesus, like he is the light. And when I'm led by him, when I'm not trying to figure it out on my own, because I mean, if anything the last year has shown us, it's that we don't know what's coming. And here we don't know fully where we're going, but we know who's leading us, and don't know how long it's going to take. But we know that we have the guide and we have the light of the world leading us. And that's a powerful thing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Well, that seems like a good place for us to stop. We got some clarity there.
Yeah. Well, Dave, thank you. I've enjoyed 2 weeks in a row.
It's a treat, and thank you, Jason. And it's amazing how like talking to another person about scripture, it just like opens up a lot more than just sitting on our own looking at it. And
absolutely.
Well, be blessed all.
See you next week.
All right. Bye.